everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for your patience. As I took 2 weeks off, we still had podcasts. I wanted to be sure that we had the guests on. And even though it was not live, I really appreciate everybody streaming it, downloading. The numbers are amazing. And I really, 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 really appreciate it. Before we get to the show, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Unmuzzled is presented by the following sponsors. Bark Pouch. Bark Pouch believes there's no greater joy than a delightful time with your dog or dogs, plural. We like a lot of dogs around here. So they make irresistible lickable treats that are easy to use while walking, training, grooming, familying, friending, and even vet visits. Check them out, barkpouch.com. Kiki's Corner Natural Pet Foods in downtown Winfield, Illinois, just a block south of CDH Hospital on the railroad tracks. Kiki's has all your food and health aid needs for dogs and cats. Kiki's Corner for a healthy, happy pet. Canine Cruise is the place to take your pet. They offer dog and cat boarding, dog daycare, pet retail, and mindful day school. With over 12,000 square feet of indoor space and a spacious yard, they are the one-stop shop for professional pet care in Chicago. Thanks so much, sponsors. I really appreciate it. So before we get to this amazing podcast, we have Lisa, who's the co-founder of Bentley's, coming on. It's actually perfect timing because we're going to talk about small businesses and woman-owned businesses, which I want to talk to her about that term too. I was hashtagging that today and I'm like, why isn't it just like a business? Like I love supporting women and that's important, but I wish someday it would just be like, we have a business. But today is the 1-year anniversary of me walking away from corporate America. I left TV after 24 years and took pretty much a leap of faith. I had Live Like Rue already going for many years, but I started a pet care business. And if you listened to the podcast last week with Kim from Bosley's Backyard, you heard us talking about that you don't just one day take that leap. It takes a lot of planning. And for her, it was 9 years of this dream and planning. And for me, it was many months of just knowing that I could not stay in corporate America anymore. For many reasons, but a lot was my mental health and, just not having a life. But work was my life and, 60, 80-hour work weeks. And I'm not going to say too much more than that. It was just a lot. I did love my job in television. I went to school for it. I was one of few people that graduated from college that actually went into TV and stayed there for many years. It's not an easy industry, that's for sure. Do I miss it? Some parts of it. Am I still working sometimes 60 to 80 hours a week? Yes, but I'm working for myself. And there's no better feeling. And I know I've talked about this too on past podcasts, but if you can do it, I highly recommend it. It's not easy. I don't want anybody to think that this is easy. Thank you, Ginger. I appreciate it. But it is so fulfilling to run your own businesses and be your own boss. It's also very scary because it's on you. So if it's not working or you don't have donors or you don't have people like hooked into your business, you're in trouble. So, you've got to have a good plan. And, I went into this day a year ago, really having a plan and having a lot of support. I couldn't do it without my husband. I couldn't do it without my family. I couldn't do it without my friends. So anyway, enough about me. We have an amazing guest today. Lisa is the co-founder of Bentley's Pet Stuff. And if you're from Illinois, and I know, Lisa, it extends far beyond Illinois, but everybody knows of Bentley. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. It's so great to be here. We're excited.
Yeah, and you have really built an incredible business. But before we get to that part of it, can you tell us about your background with animals? Because you've got to love animals to be in this kind of business.
That's very true. I've always had a passion for all animals. Growing up, I wanted to be a vet. So from a young age, I was bringing home various stray animals, not just dogs and cats, but I brought home snakes. We had a crow named Charlie because he had a broken wing, frogs. I would think I was rescuing tadpoles from the lake that was a block away and bringing them home and raising them into frogs. I learned early on, my parents, if I asked for a pet and it wasn't in front of them, they'd say no. But if I brought home a stray or asked, showed them the pet, they couldn't say no. So, growing up, we all had, there was 4 of us kids. We all had our own pets too. So we had, rats, gerbils, fish, ferrets, dogs, cats, birds, you name it. We've had it. So I've been around pets and animals my whole life. It's just always been a part of who I am. And, luckily I was able to, at one point, kind of like you, where you're just kind of in this corporate America world and you're like, okay, I'm at a crossroads. Now what?
Which I think, sorry, that was slow to get there.
Okay.
Which I think is, it is really hard. So how did you start the business? And I assume you had kind of a long runway, but I know that once your business started, it went like, it was like you were going. So how did it all come about?
So I didn't have as long of a runway as I probably should have, but it started in 2008. I was actually in the financial industry for 10 years prior to that. And that was shutting down at the time during the recession. So I was kind of at a crossroads where I'm like, okay, this industry is shutting down. What am I passionate about? What do I want to do, moving forward? And, I kind of had this idea. I was very passionate about learning about nutrition, even from the human side. I had battled some health issues myself growing up and was in and out of the hospital for different digestive issues. And once they kind of figured it out, and I'll say quotes because I don't think they really ever figured it out. They put me on 14 different pills a day. I did feel better and somewhat, but I had always thought it was normal to wake up feeling nauseous and ill every day. Ate a very bland diet. I couldn't even eat an orange. I couldn't eat anything acidic. And one day, one of my very close friends, she was like, I want you to read this book. I'm going to go vegan. I read this book. You should read it. And I was like, well, that sounds extreme. But at the time I was like, well, I don't feel well myself anyway. So what's the harm? I read the book in 2 days. On the 3rd day, I changed my diet and became vegan. So long story short, I got off of those 14 pills. I saw what nutrition and better feeding, health did for my own health. So those big changes helped me understand nutrition and how important it was. So at the time, kind of fast forwarding, that after I changed my diet, I had 2 cats that I had rescued when I was really young at 18. And, they were later on about 11 and 12 or 12 and 13. And they both passed away from cancer within a year apart, different types of cancer. But I was like, that's kind of strange. So I had my aha moment and I really started researching the cat food and trying to learn about what, the big differences were and what was available. I just bought food at the big box stores. So I used to buy my cats what was the most expensive thing on the shelf, thinking that equaled quality. Until I really dove in and realized that all the fillers they had in the cat's food, the corn, the wheat, the soys, it wasn't biologically appropriate for the cats. And I was really sad for my cats. And I'm not saying that food directly caused the cancer or, that it was the biggest reason for it. I understand, sometimes it's genetics and other factors, but it certainly didn't help their immune system. And I didn't give them that fighting chance. So, we had also adopted a dog during that time, right after we got married. I got married in 2006 and we adopted a dog right before the cats had passed away. We named that dog Bentley. And once we realized how poor quality the food was, I quickly turned and looked at what we were feeding Bentley. And I started changing his diet and eventually landed on raw diets. And I would shop at some local stores that were pet specialty stores, but I still had to kind of sift through the shelves and look at ingredients and look at the bags. And they had some, poor quality foods next to really healthy foods. So I still had to kind of, even with treats, I kind of had to kind of look and search. So I told my husband, I'm like, I think I'm going to open up my own store and I want to do the research for my customers. I want people to come in and feel confident about what we sell and that they can grab any food or treats off the shelf and know that it's not loaded with the fillers or the junks for their dog. I want like the best of the best out there and have kind of a pet specialty true pet specialty feel in my store. And that's how Bentley's kind of started in 2008.
Yeah, and I was doing some research, and so the first store started in Arlington Heights, which for those of you that know Live Like Rue and know me personally, I live here. It's an amazing store right downtown. I almost bought an office for Live Like Rue right beside it. I'm like, oh, this would be so perfect. Um, but it really did take off. And I think, anybody can start a pet store, but because you had that history, and there's so many podcasts I want to do about things in the environment, food, and all of this buzz about cancer in animals and what causes it, and so many people changing their household cleaners and that kind of thing.
Right.
But just I feel like you were almost ahead of the curve. So what happened after you opened that first store? And it was a hit, to be honest.
Yeah, we opened up the first store in 2008, and then about 3 years later, 2 or 3 years later, we expanded that first location. That location was only 1,100 square feet, and the space next to us opened up. So we opened up the wall, and we expanded that to 1,700 square feet, and then it really kind of took off because I was able to bring in more food options and that kind of stuff. And, Arlington Heights is a great town. It's a big town, but a very small town feel, if you know what I mean, like very much word of mouth. And I loved it. I love that area. The customers are wonderful, and they just, the more customers we'd help, the more they would refer. So it's just a great area. But so then, we were driving around, and my husband and I don't know what we were doing that day, but we were driving around. I saw an empty spot in Schaumburg, and I really liked the Schaumburg area. So I was like, I'm just going to call and see what the run is. Like, don't do it unless you're really serious about opening a second location. So I always like dares. I called right away on that spot. And, we had the second location, and then the third, and then the fourth. And we just kind of grew from there. We wanted to expand in different states. And so we did have an investor, Marcus, who partnered with us to help us grow. And we did growth through new store openings and through acquisitions. We were one of the first to start rolling up local pet food stores, and that were looking to close down or to retire. And I want to keep any store that we can. I think every town should have their own local pet food store. I'd love to keep, those stores going. So we grew really fast and furious, and it was a blast, but a lot of challenges. So, you learn from your mistakes. I always say, like, mistakes are great reminders, but don't let them hold you back in making better decisions in the future.
Yeah, which is what Kim and I talked about. I mean, in a small business, you have one bad day or one error, and you just, because it's just you, at least for me, I know you had some people around you, but initially it's just you. You feel like the world is closing in on you, and you second guess everything. So I can't even imagine with the amount that you grew so quickly, the pressure that you felt. But I think too, what is great about your stores is you walk in there, and number one, you're instantly like received, like, hello, how are you? How can we help you? We've done events there with Live Like Rue, and the place has been absolutely packed. So your customers are very loyal, but you really do still focus on nutrition. You don't just put the food out and say, here you go, good luck. Like, this is your employees know the food, they know the brands. How did you get to that place? I assume, a lot of them go through training. I remember I worked at a pet food store for a bit, and like the training about everything in the food and the diet. But it's really important for you that every store has this knowledge base of what they're offering.
That is our number one thing. I mean, we pride ourselves on knowledge and helping our customers. We want to find what is working best for their pet at that moment in time, because things change, right? Unfortunately, people were coming to us when they've already had issues going on. And, a lot of times we can help, or at least help aid in that journey. And I say unfortunately, because then eventually, though, we started getting more customers too that were being proactive, and wanted to do better by their pet right away before an issue would come up. So, we love helping our customers. We do a lot of training. We now offer a certified pet dietitian program, and we let our customers know that we're here for the life of their pet. They're not just a one-time transaction. We get just as attached to our customers' pets as they are. We hate hearing about the loss of one of our customers' pets, and we want to do everything we can to help our customers' pets thrive and not just survive. I'm a very big on the key to health and nutrition is eating variety. So just like we eat a variety of fruits and veggies and quality proteins to meet our nutritional needs, it's the same for our pets. Dogs and cats still process food like a wolf or a wild cat, up to 98% the same. So we believe in rotational feeding. In fact, I had the word mixology. I know people use that a lot in, drinks and all that. We actually trademarked the word mixology for us, for our industry. So only us and Earthwise is another company we're part of. We're the only two that can use that in this industry. So we wanted a fancy word to explain rotational feeding because we believe it's that important to our pets. So basically what mixology is all about is you want to switch the proteins, you want to switch brands, you want to switch the types of food. So for example, let's say you're currently feeding a chicken formula, maybe in 2 or 3 months, we would then say, hey, let's move to a duck formula. And then in 2 or 3 months, move to a beef and so on. And all those proteins offer various nutrients that our pets need. So when you then layer in adding fresher food option, it elevates the bowl even more. So we also created a fresher food philosophy board that talks about how to navigate through all the different options, whether you're going from kibble to canned food, dehydrated, gently cooked, freeze-dried, raw. The more raw you can add to the bowl, the better. It's the most biologically appropriate for your dog or cat. That's what I started Bentley on. I switched him to raw. Our cat's oregano and spice. Oregano might walk by every now and then. He likes to interrupt my Zooms and stuff. And then our dogs now waffles, and we just adopted our second dog, Ava, this past weekend, and she's transitioning well onto raws too. But even if customers could add 15 to 20% of raw to their bowl, it can make a big impact onto their pet's health. We offer complete and balanced raw diet. So just be aware that there's random recipes online. I caution to those. Many of them are not balanced. Also, when you buy raw in the grocery store, it's very different. So the expectation is you're going to go home and cook it. Our brands do major testing, safety checks. We have a zero tolerance, salmonella, bacteria, so it's safe to feed. But I still tell people, our biggest thing is how can we maximize your pet's health? How can we help your pet thrive and not just survive? And, by offering these fresher food options, it's just like if we eat the variety of fresh foods, we're going to feel better. I always kind of make the connection to, you can eat a protein bar, right? It's technically 100% complete and balanced. And if you eat 3 or 4 a day, you'd probably be okay. But if we could add freshness into our bowl, like the raw foods, the gently cooks, or even raw goat's milk or bone broth as a topper to add moisture into the diet. Raw goat's milk is a great way to add moisture, and it's full of wonderful, good bacteria for the gut and enzymes to help break down the nutrients and in the digestion. Bone broth is another great way to add moisture. It can also help with skin and coat and help heal and seal the gut if your dog is having leaky gut issues. There's just many ways to elevate that pet bowl. And so we like to try and educate our customers as much as possible and go on that journey. We always tell them, like, if this bag of food doesn't work, bring it back, we'll find another. Or, we're always trying to work with our customers to get the best results for their pet.
Yeah, which says so much. I just learned so much from you in that 10 minutes.
Sorry, I tend to talk fast and rattle.
No, it's amazing. And bone broth, it's funny because a lot of people come to me for what my dog's not eating, like what bone broth and goat's milk are the two that I always recommend. I have a dog, Herman, who has a collapsing trachea, and they say actually that the bone broth helps to kind of rebuild some of those cells in the trachea. Unfortunately, he's very, very picky with what he eats, but we do try it. My parents are actually watching, and they have a question. Do you have a store in Pennsylvania?
So we are also part of Earthwise Pet, and Earthwise Pet is in Exton and Easton, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah, that's not far.
Okay.
Yeah. That's not far. My parents will travel to Trader Joe's like an hour away, so they'll go anywhere.
I understand that because we used to live 5 minutes away from a Trader Joe's in Illinois, and now here I'm like, where's the nearest Trader Joe's? It's like 30 minutes away. So
Yeah. So thank you, Ginger. Yeah, Ginger owns a pet store actually around in Illinois too. And she carries some of the best stuff, and my parents say thank you for letting them know. So Lisa, I know too, you also do events, you give back to the community, you've given back to Live Like Rue. Those things, even events, which we were talking before this, you were talking about how much you love events and you try to show up to them, but those it takes you a while, number one, to get into the community and gain that trust. But is there kind of like a lesson that you've learned through all of this? You have the nutrition, you obviously have your loyal customers, you have the events, you have the give back to the community. Is there like a big lesson that you've learned since 2008 in all of this?
I mean, you can never go wrong giving back to your community that you're in. I mean, we're in multiple states, so we're in multiple communities. And I always tell my stores, because I can't be everywhere. I would love to go to every event. I'm an event junkie, and I love dealing, working with the rescues and going to their big events and stuff like that. But I always try to let our stores know, like, get as involved as you can in the community. We want to be that pillar. We want to be known as the pet store for that community. And working with local rescues, we love having them come in and, having adoption events in our stores, tying together different fun events that we might have, like, it's pumpkin spice latte season. We do have that for dogs too. And so we have, a pumpkin spice latte tasting weekend. But overall, it's just giving back is always the way to go. It's one thing that helped build the first store and all of them. You can't go wrong with being a part of the community and really, really getting connected with the people around you and feeling that support from the community is wonderful. So, one of the biggest things is, we're always try to be doing as much as we can, whether we're handing out samples at an event or donating a bunch of samples and donating raffle prizes, whatever we could do to help. If we can't be there, we represent it in another way, but also be able to help be supportive of whatever events are going on.
Yeah. And I think that's how I first found out about you, because, when I first started to volunteer at Animal Care and Control, I started to work with a lot of the rescues kind of like on the side and go to their events. And I think like I won like a Bentley's basket, and I was like, what's this? Because I was just, and it was probably like right around like 2008. It would make sense. So I think that's how I learned about you. So that part of it is amazing. And you just reached like a different audience. I mean, you snagged me, which is great. So I know I said in the beginning, when I was going on and on about woman-owned business, I would love it for us to just be able to say it's a business, but I do think people, like to support a woman-owned business. And, I hope we get to a point where someday we don't have to say that it's just my business, it's your business. But for women, or for anybody, it doesn't have to be for women. Do you have advice about starting a business? I feel like I have kind of my own things, but for you've started something that was really small that it's huge. I mean, you can't even call it a small business anymore. Do you have advice for somebody?
Yeah, I mean, when I started the first store, I can clearly remember saying to my husband, I'm not sure if this is going to work, so you better get a real job and get insurance. I had I had a plan, but I didn't have a plan, if that makes sense. I knew that I would love to eventually grow. Once the first store kind of took hold and had roots, and I felt like a little bit more grounded, I felt a little bit comfortable doing store two, but it's never easy. And I would say when you're starting out, know what you stand for, what you believe in, and whether it's a product or a service or both, or, whatever it is, just know that that's your focus, and know that not everybody's going to believe in you, and that's okay. You don't need validation from everyone, right? Like you need to know your people and stick with those who will lift you up and keep the positivity going. When I opened up, it was a recession. So other local stores around me were closing down, and I was just opening up. So I, had to keep moving forward. And I had to focus on, I would say the best thing to do is focus on what's in your control rather than what's not. There's a lot of things that are going to be out of your control. So if you can focus on what's in your control and make changes there to adjust for your business, that's going to be, what's going to help you the most, because you're going to get frustrated trying to change things that are just completely out of your control, that is impossible to change. So it's something that I still try and do daily for myself and for the business.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better. It seriously is so true. Because I think too, I've talked to a few rescue friends just about, the fact, like Live Like Rue Foundation. And sometimes you have to put blinders on and just do what you do, because if you let all of this other stuff get to you, you're going to drown.
Well, and I before my store opened, I had samples and a coupon. I was announcing the grand opening, so I was handing them out. I stand anytime a person walked by with the dog, I was like running out. As I'm trying to make fixtures and load shelves, trying to open my store, I was desperate to get anybody's attention, so I would run out there and give them a sample. And then even when the doors open, I remember handing out samples. And, at the time, now it's much more common for natural pet food. But even at the time, they kind of would look around and it was like they didn't know these brands. They weren't the common brands. And so I'd have customers that, I'd give samples. I'm all excited. And they would be like, well, where else can I buy this in case you shut down? And, hearing that, you're just like, wait, what? No, and I wasn't going to have it. And I was like, well, if you support local business, and, I just was like all about it and all about the community. And I wouldn't let those comments take me down. So, you just have to kind of hold your focus and stay positive and really believe in yourself too.
Yeah. And I feel like that almost drives you more. Like when I hear something, like, I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Like, yeah, we'll see,
Yeah, no, I'm going to show you.
Yeah. And that says a lot about us, and where we are, because I think it takes some strong people to do things like this and start a business. And really, you've really grown it. So people always ask me, like, what are you going to do next with Live Like Rue? And I always say, like, I got to get through today. But can you look ahead at like a year, 5 years, 10 years, and kind of what are your expectations for Bentley's?
I always look at, what's the next 5 days instead of the next 5 years. I'm kind of like you. But, we just want to continue to reach out to our communities and drive awareness. I think there's still such an opportunity to expand natural pet food. There's so many people that are still buying their dog and cat food at the grocery store. And, unfortunately, the marketing of those packages, they're good. So I get it. But there's a lot of education to do. So, our goal is to just keep educating our customers, to keep driving that awareness that there are better options. It's not more expensive, by the way. There's a lot of great options that are very reasonable. So we have to dispel some of those myths as well. But, our goal is to just keep getting more and more pets on healthier food and making that awareness and driving that out there.
I think too, I used to talk about this when I just recently relaunched this podcast, but in 2020 and 2019, like the pet care business, the pet business in general was booming. Like you used to go to TJ Maxx or Home Goods and it would be like this little section of like pet stuff. And now it's like 3 aisles. Like there's like an aisle of just beds.
They're recognizing, everywhere is recognizing. I see stuff in gas stations. I'm like, wait, what? It's everywhere. People are realizing this is a thing and it's here to stay. And like people are loving their pets and they're going to do, they're going to spoil them.
And I think it says a lot too, that the younger generations too, like we always hear about millennials, like wanting to have pets. They really do care what they're feeding their pets. And I think like,
I love it.
Yeah. And that's where you are winning because you are ahead of that curve and you've already got your stores with all that knowledge and product. So congrats to you. I'm really honored to have you on the podcast. I think, people will learn so much from this podcast and I really appreciate it, Lisa.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure and I appreciate your time and thank you for having me.
Awesome. We'll talk to you again sometime soon, I hope.
Sounds good. Take care.
Bye. Lisa, everybody from Bentley's. Just if you've not been to one of their stores, they are amazing. We've done many events with them with Live Like Rue. I've been to other rescue events with them. Just incredible work they do in the community, and their knowledge on food. And Ginger, I know you're probably still watching. I know you've got that same knowledge too. That knowledge on pet food and pet nutrition is so important in today's world. And, you know, having a foundation with animals that get cancer, Lisa was right on. Like, some of that is food and what we've given our pets. And it's hard, but it's not truly really expensive. You can make it work, and a raw diet is really great. I do hope to have, I've been trying to get somebody on the podcast that is really knowledgeable on nutrition in animals and cancer causing detergents. Vicky, our care package director for Live Like Rue, and I had a conversation about this, like, you know, what you wash your clothes in, like, how can that affect animals? It's a really hot topic right now. Yeah, Ginger, you are very knowledgeable. When Herman wouldn't eat, there was Ginger. Try this. Today he had whipped cream and bread. That's how his pills went down. Speaking of awful things to give your dog. But sometimes it's about, you know, he's a sanctuary dog, we call him. So I want to give a quick little time for my supporting sponsors, is what we call these. Thank you. We can't do this podcast without our following supporting sponsors. Twin Tails Market and Barkery is a local family-owned business that has been serving the community for close to 7 years. Located in Palos Park, Twin Tails has everything you need to give your dogs and cats healthy and natural foods, treats, chews, toys, and much more. You can find them at twintailsmarket.com and on Facebook and Instagram at Twin Tails Market. The Canine PT specializes in helping senior dogs improve their independence with their daily routine as they age, heal, or recover post-surgery through exercise, massage, laser, and acupuncture, so they can live their golden years without the need for pain medication. Brilliant work you're doing, Canine PT. Anything is Possible is Chicago's premier dog training company. I have sent so many people to Anything is Possible. They offer group classes for every stage of your dog's life and have a talented team of behavior specialists to work through any issues that need modification using positive reinforcement. Liz Starks at Guaranteed Rate. Check with Liz for the absolute best mortgage options. She helps when others can't and even calls it rescue loans. Buyers, sellers, or investors, give Liz a call. She can lend in all 50 states. NMLS number 224526. Kimberly King Photography. Kimberly is a professional photographer from Chicago who loves animals as much as you do. That's a lot. Her pet portraiture celebrates pure love, connection, and the beauty of life with our furry loved ones by our side. Canine Therapy Corps. Give back and volunteer with your dog at Canine Therapy Corps. Volunteer teams empower and motivate individuals through goal-directed, animal-assisted therapy services free of charge across Chicagoland. Visit caninetherapycorps.org for more information. Thank you, supporting sponsors. I love you guys, and I really appreciate the sponsorship. If anybody has ideas for guests, please let me know. I'm booking right now into like mid-September into October as well. But I've got a lot of great guests lined up. So next week it's Techs for Clefs. Techs for Clefs. It's an organization made up of vet techs who are saving pets by educating others on care for clefts. So for those of you that don't know what a cleft dog is, we'll find out more. And it's not just dogs, I should say. But they also help with other birth defects as well. So it's basically a group of vet techs that got together and helps anybody that number one has a dog born like that or adopts a dog like that. So it's a very unique thing, but it's amazing. And they reached out to me and asked to be on the podcast. And I'm really excited for that one. I think it's going to be great. So we will be live at 7 p.m. on video next Thursday. So August 31st. And don't forget, you can always listen on your favorite podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. Any of those, you can always listen right there. Thank you, Ginger. You're like my biggest fan, I swear. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I really love this podcast. So if you're just hearing the end of it, please go download it or stream it tomorrow. Lisa was amazing, again, from Bentley's Pet Stuff, and they've got stores all over the United States. Incredible guests, and I really, really appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great night.